listeners. My name is Deanna, founder of the Ascent podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs about the trials and triumphs of starting business ventures. Today, we have Martel Metellus on the show. He is a serial entrepreneur and a fitness guru and a tech salesperson. Hey, Martel, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Deanna. How are you?
Good. Okay, so let's start by talking about how you got interested in entrepreneur in the first place, in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I started off in high school. I was very passionate about engineering. I wanted to be an aerospace engineer, and something kind of came up in terms of basketball. So basketball was like my main sport, and I went to a camp and got recruited by Babson, which is a big entrepreneurship school. And like I said, entrepreneurship wasn't on my radar whatsoever. And I started learning a little.
What did your parents do for work? Were your parents at all entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So my mom was in the medical field. So she was more so in like gastrointestinal labs, doing a lot of phlebotomy and stuff like that. Again, I have first generation parents, so they're not really from the U.S. They're from Haiti.
Oh. Awesome.
Yeah, so they came here. My mom picked up in the medical space because in Haitian culture, especially in the U.S., the medical field is seen as something prestigious. So that's kind of why she got into that. My dad was very big on tailoring, so he actually helped run a tailor shop.
Tailoring?
Yeah. So he used to actually make my suits.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he had a lot of entrepreneurship in him, which I think got passed down to me. He's big on music as well, poetry, which kind of credits some of my creative ability. But that's kind of where I got that, and so getting that opportunity to go to Babson helped me understand what entrepreneurship was a little bit more.
What did you do at Babson? Like, what was it a camp?
No, so I actually was at UPenn for a basketball camp. I was trying to get recruited by Division I schools, but I found out that the camp that I got recruited to, there were a bunch of Division III schools, which I didn't really see as interesting at the time because I was so big on Division I, as all sports athletes are. But I had a coach that had coached me at the camp that had told me, hey, Division III is still great. It's great education, very, very,
still pay for college.
Right. And so, Babson came up, NYU came up, and a lot of other liberal arts colleges, but Babson kind of stood out to my uncle, who is in the business space. He's big on IT. He's really big in that field. So he worked in Boston, and he told me, hey, I know about Babson. Entrepreneurship is something you should be doing. And I told him, hey, like, why not? This is something that, might be interesting. And it's funny because I used to always look up salaries on Glassdoor.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
And I looked up entrepreneurship on Glassdoor. This is how much I had no idea.
I wonder if they can even put like some entrepreneurs make $0 for their entire life and some make $8 billion. So it's like, what? How did you?
It's not, and that's another thing, and we can touch up on this later, but it's just not a typical career path, like a corporate career path, which I didn't know at the time.
And what did you major in at Babson? Because Babson is one of the most prestigious business schools in the world. Like people come from, they'd rather go, like they'll travel all the way here from Canada and California and just say, I was going to go to Stanford or something, and I went to Babson. So it's a really prestigious entrepreneurship school. Like, what did you study there?
Yeah, so I studied, formally it was business administration, but we went through a rigorous curriculum, like even from the jump. Mind you, when I went to college or when I went to high school, I never learned accounting. I think the most I ever got in business in terms of education was statistics, which I didn't even take. I took calculus instead.
Yeah. In high school, I think it's insane. It's like they teach us, I don't know, how to calculate the circumference of a circle. I'm like, yeah, that's really helpful in the real world because we all need to do that daily. I think they should definitely have more business classes in high schools. But at Babson, what were you doing for work? You were just school full time, or?
So my freshman year, I worked kind of on campus. I did a lot of just admin stuff. I worked with the chief diversity officer at the school at the time, especially over the summer. I took summer courses. So I was honestly at Babson for the entire 4 years of my career. I didn't really go home as much, just because I wanted to stay on campus and just.
Where are you from?
things. I'm from Arizona, so born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Lived there for 10 years. Then moved to Arizona when I was 10.
Oh,
Lived there
great.
for 8
And
years.
then up to Boston just for school.
Yep, still there.
Nice. And so when you were at Babson, you were doing all of this kind of definitely education work, but you were involved with entrepreneurship. And what was your experience with like your first real business venture? Like when were you like, okay, now I want to try to build something?
Yeah, so that started with me. I mean, we can kind of start from the beginning. So I was really interested in fitness right after I stopped playing basketball. So I quit playing basketball halfway through my freshman year because I was like, hey, I kind of want to focus on, yeah, at Babson, because I got recruited to play there. So I kind of was just like, my education's kind of falling on the wayside because I'm focused on sports too much.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's very hard out there, especially because we were a top school in Division 3 basketball. So our practice schedule was very rigorous,
Yeah,
and I
you
didn't
have
really have
sessions, like
right.
they take up a lot of your time, and all of your away games, you have to
Hmm.
miss tests
Hmm.
and things. And so you were like, my education is actually more important than basketball right now.
Yeah, and then I ended up stopping that, and then I got into more of a mode where I was like, hey, this entrepreneurship thing is interesting. Like, let me take a look at it. And at the time, I was like, hey, I kind of want to start doing fitness a little bit more because I'm bored. I need something competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was doing that, I noticed that a lot of students were kind of picking up on it. They were like, Martel, like I always see you in the gym all the time, and I started training people at my school. And
Basketball training.
like personal training, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how that started. But then I ended up saying, hey, I want to make way more money. So there was a Boston Sports Club like right literally down the hill, and I went over there. I got my certification from NASM, which is like the top
That's
certification.
the toughest one. I
Yeah.
was a personal trainer in college too. Right down the street from me, like Suffolk University is in the middle of Beacon Hill in Boston. Waltham is where Babson is. So like 30 minutes away ish, but all the gyms in the middle of Boston, there were so many trainers, they would just kind of take whatever certification you had. So I had ACE, which was like open book test and just
Yeah,
like
it was.
super
Yeah.
easy. I didn't go anywhere near NASA. I was like that. It
Oh,
was
NASM, it killed me. Like literally, it took me. It was a quick process. So it took me 2 months to study and
yeah,
go through. I got the certification. I was so happy. I ended up going to Boston Sports Club. I did really well. I was like the youngest trainer there. They're like, "What the heck? Like you're training a bunch of people already." And the people at my school started again taking notice, and there were kids that were like, "Hey, I want to be a trainer too." So that sparked the idea for me to start what I called Upfit at the time. So that was my first official business venture over the summer of my sophomore year, where I connected student or attempted to connect students to trainers who were students at the time who wanted to make more money. I partnered with a certification company called Action Sports Certification, and they ended up they were the provider of certifications for those students to become
so
trainers.
you like recruited your classmates
Hmm.
into a group and you were like, I'm going to teach you how to be a trainer, or you brought the clients to the people that you recruited and you were like, now we're gonna.
A little bit of both. So the students would be trained to become trainers either through me or just taking the certification and just figuring out how to actually get clients themselves, coming to me for
Mhm.
help, to anybody else who I brought on as like the lead trainers to help out. But this was all going to be on an app, right? So I basically started
This
out.
is going to be on an app. So this was
Oh
going to
yeah.
be so because you're so now
Hmm.
you work in tech
Hmm.
and you've always been passionate about fitness, and it sounds like your first venture kind of combined fitness and tech.
That was
Like
the attempt.
has that been was that your intention at the time? You were like, I'm interested in both of these areas and I want to find a way to bridge them, or was that just kind of an accident?
It was kind of an accident. I didn't really think it was possible to blend both together because I was so used to just, okay, you're a trainer, you either have a gym or you have a bunch of clients and you work
Yeah.
like that. If you're
Yeah.
in tech, you just code and you make software, you make apps. That's all you do.
Right. So they're
Um,
separate.
so they were separate in my head, but for some reason they came together in that idea, which was great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that idea, it started going very well. And I think I got to a point where, because Babson's nature is very entrepreneurship focused, we learned a little bit about funding. So I was like, okay, I need money. I don't have money right now.
Yeah.
Not enough to make an app. So let
Right.
me find someone who does. So there was a kid who had reached out to me and said, hey, I'm very interested in what you're doing. My dad has some money that, he might be interested in helping out. And me not knowing what I know now, I just quickly just jumped into that partnership, and it ended up not going well, just because our
Was it-
objectives weren't aligned.
Okay, so it was you and the co-founder. It
Yes.
wasn't necessarily the business. It was more like a miscommunication of.
Yeah, it was just a lack of communication on both ends. In terms of just me, I had a list of objectives I wanted to get done. I had deadlines, and for the partner at the time, he was very focused on his life, uh,
Hmm,
but he just wanted to have his name attached to something,
I
and
got kind of.
say I was a co-founder for this,
Right,
and
right.
it
So,
just, yeah.
oh no. So I was like on that subject, and this is something that I get asked a lot, and questions that I have all the time too about this is just what are your thoughts on going out and looking for a co-founder versus going your venture alone? Like, what are your thoughts?
I think that finding a co-founder is very, very hard. As we both know, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It seems easy because it seems like the workload that you're going to have is probably going to decrease, but at the same time, you have to worry about maintaining relationships with people, and sometimes you may not want to have a co-founder who's your friend,
Yeah.
because
And that's, I think, the biggest problem is everyone's like, you need to be friends with your
no,
coworker. Like, you need to have already known them for a while. And because you can't just find a coworker on Craigslist and just say, like, hey, like, do you want to join my company? Because who knows who they are and how they like act. But at the same time, it is tough to be co-founding with a friend. And so there's like this tough dichotomy there. Like, how do you think about it? Like, try to go at it alone until you need to hire someone, or strategically look for someone as soon as you kind of have the business idea?
I think it depends on the nature of the business idea. For me, especially in the past, I've had a lot of bigger ideas. It hasn't really been like small business like. So, with whatever I had, I just said, I can't do this alone. And I've tried. Like I had a point where I really tried to do the upfit thing by myself after I
Yeah.
had told them, hey, this isn't working out. And it just didn't really work out for me because I just had so much going on with school. So it just really depends on the size of the project that you're trying to tackle. And if it's something that's a small business, you honestly should do it alone because you'll learn a lot more and it's something that's actually feasible versus if you have something that's almost like enterprise like,
Mm.
you need at least one or two people with different skill sets besides you.
Yeah. I think like that's kind of my thought on it too is I very much like to start businesses alone and run them to the point where I can either sell them or blend them into somebody else's business and get acquired or something. And what I find is that it's the best thing for me is to go it alone and do as much as I can as a solo founder. And then when I realize that there are pieces that I'm missing because just the core competencies that I don't have, like one of them I know is sales. I'm not a good salesperson. I can't convince someone that they should buy something, even if they should buy it. I'm not the person that's going to push them and be like, I mean, this is just a really great pen. Like it writes so well. Like none of that sounds like truthful coming out of my mouth, even if it is. So I'm not good at that. So I know that. So when I get to a point in a business venture where I need to sell, I hire a salesperson. Like it's almost like not looking for co-founders, but looking for employees. But the first four people in any business venture are going to be like co-founders or early founding team members.
Hmm.
So I think about it kind of that way and more of just like, you know what you're good at, like then hire for the competencies around that. But I don't go looking for like co-founders. I think it's just too
Yeah.
hard.
It's also tough because in a lot of the situations that I've had, the skills have overlapped. So it's just really hard to come together with, even another one other co-founder that could be identical to you in terms of skill set. That always tends to not work because it's just like two people doing one job and you
Yeah.
have all of these other things that you have to do. So imagine two people who are really good at sales coming together to start a
Yeah.
business, but there's nobody on the back end.
Yeah, none of the operational stuff would get done. And
Right.
so that's what I mean by like sorting the duties and saying, you're really good at this, I'm really good at this. But as I was doing that with my last venture, Mogul Villa, which is kind of due to the coronavirus and the travel restrictions, and it was kind of a travel business, has been put on pause. I had a person working in there and he was really good at sales,
Mhm.
but he also wanted to say and things about the business model. And I was running all the financial projections. And I was like, any time that we would get new customers or something, I was the one doing the onboarding and all of that. And he wanted to say in like how we should put the houses and where we should put the furniture and how we should charge the customers. And I was like, you literally, like, you need to stick to sales, because otherwise this is just, we're just clashing too often over literally the dumbest things. But when someone steps into your territory as a business and operationally, I think everybody has a tendency to react and just be like, this is what I'm doing. Do your part, your
Mhm.
thing. So on that note, what do you think would be your core competencies and skills? Like if you were to start a business venture, like what do you think would be the best for you to handle?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, and it's crazy to say because if this was a year ago, I'd be like, I'd hate sales. Like, I would never want to do that. But it seems to be one of my core competencies as of right now.
Yeah.
Clearly, because
What are
I'm
you
selling.
doing right now?
Yeah, so I'm with an IT company, an IT software company out in Switzerland, selling software that basically helps. And I'm not going to bore people, but it just
Well,
helps
I mean,
IT
what
shops.
does it help them do? Like, there's people that listen to this podcast that are business owners. Like, who's your target? Who do you sell to?
Yeah, so we sell to CIOs, we sell to honestly any company with computers in general, but we target VPs, IT managers, and help them become more proactive in solving the issues of the employees. So our whole thing is delighting employees, making employees happy.
That's
Um,
awesome. How do you how do you delight employees? Like, how do you actually do that? I know in other industries how they do that, like
mhm,
hotels, sometimes they'll just upgrade rooms, or same thing with
yeah.
airplanes. Like, that's, I know how you do it in hospitality and travel, but how do you do it in IT and
Yeah, so IT has always been just almost like a boring sector of where people just blame them for everything. And
I
so
mean, essentially, that's for any of the IT professionals. Our thoughts are with.
they get it, and it sucks because there's just no visibility into how you as the employee are interacting with the technology that they're providing.
Mhm.
And IT has always been more reactive, which is why we flipped the script and said, hey, let's start monitoring from the employees' devices, not really seeing everything that you're doing in terms of stalking you, but just seeing how your device is performing real time and providing IT professionals or even CIOs, anybody who's managing that technology, the data to actually be able to take action before you have to submit a ticket. Because if you think about it, you as an employee are not going to be well versed in IT to know what's going on with your computer. And typically, IT professionals are saying, hey, so Deanna, like, what's going on with your computer? Why did this crash happen? They're asking you a bunch of questions, and you're just like, I'm not the IT
Like,
pro
I have
here.
no idea. The sound just won't work. Like the
Yeah.
volume just is not working. And like I think I'm coming from a consulting company, and we had an outsourced IT company there, and it would be like, definitely reactive when one of the cameras in the conference room wasn't working. We'd have to call them and they'd try to walk me through it and troubleshoot it. And it was so annoying because I was just like, this is not part of my job. This is your job. Like, why am I having to kind of do this type of thing? I wish that it was less reactive and more proactive. Like, I saw that somebody tried to use the camera in the conference room the other day, and it didn't work, or it didn't seem like it worked because there was no connectivity. I'm
Mhm.
going to take a look at that for you or something. And then I was the operations manager at the time, and I would have just said, that's amazing. That employee didn't even tell me that the camera wasn't working, and I'm hearing it from you. And not only am I hearing that there's a problem, but that you're fixing it and working on it without me having to ask.
And
That's
that's literally what we do. And even with the surveys, like going out and having in context, in like real-time surveys sent out to the employees saying, hey, we saw that you had this issue, we just fixed it. What are your thoughts on the IT organization right now? Getting that sentiment, that's something that we do that most companies don't. They typically send surveys out like 3 months beyond the
They'll
problem,
do like
and you're just like, I
a
don't remember, I don't care, and you don't fill out the surveys.
yeah.
So
I think that's awesome, and it's definitely the way that we're going to need to, because as more we transition into AI and different types of tech where we're not really coding ourselves or fixing bugs ourselves or even fixing mechanical issues ourselves. Like if the printer stops working, the printer at my old office would send a digital communication to its manufacturer. So it would send something to HP and say, there's this part or something. And then the part would just kind of show up and it would just say like, we're going to send an HP person to come install that. And I would have just been looking at the printer, like, why is this thing not working? And it like knew why its own self wasn't working. So where do you think the future of tech is going as far as workplace and like automation?
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting because of this whole coronavirus thing, we've seen this huge shift that wasn't even intended, but it was going to happen eventually, and we both know this. Like remote work is going to be the hot topic for the next 5 years and beyond. I mean, it could be the permanent solution to work because
I think
a lot of employers are realizing, like a lot of the employers would typically say, oh, we can't do this work from home, you have to do it from your office. And we're now realizing, wait, no, I can literally sit on my computer and do all of my work at home.
right. Yeah.
And so the demand for that is going to grow, so employers are going to have some sort of collaboration and productivity kind of toolkit to help with that. And that's another thing that we're pushing right now, is the fact that IT professionals and IT shops can help their employees from home proactively. So
that was gonna be my next questions. And if we all switch to at-home work, what do we do when we can't figure out what the technology is broken at home? Like,
mhm.
would your company switch from kind of an enterprise model where you're contracting directly with employers to fix their technological problems before they happen? Or would you switch to a more direct-to-consumer model where you're reaching out to the employees of an organization directly and meeting them kind of in their homes?
Yeah, I think for us it's tough because of how our business model works. It might just stay enterprise wide. Again, I'm not the CEO, so I can't really make the decisions. But I do know that enterprise is what we're pushing, and that kind of trickles down to the consumer, because anybody who has a job and they always have a computer and they're working either from home, more so from home now than ever. And so I think it'll be not direct to consumer, but just enterprise wide, and it'll just trickle down to people who are at work.
I think that's smart, and it's a good opportunity for, especially now with the coronavirus and the way things are going to change, because I am totally on board. I agree with you that I think even after this is over, employees are going to realize, like, you just have for years, you guys have been saying we can't do this from home. It doesn't work. The culture, the office environment fosters more productivity, but we're all learning that actually we're probably getting more done at home since we're not
We are.
to be interrupted every 30 seconds by a coworker, or get up to do something, go over to the printer, like my printer is right here. So I think after this is over and the coronavirus is done, we're going to see a huge demand from employees saying, we know this is possible, we've seen the other side, and we want that. So
Right.
I think companies are going to have to do, and I think they would be smart too. Like, I really don't understand, I never have, the office mentality. Like, what are the chances that the top 20 smartest, brightest, most creative individuals that you need in your organization live 10 miles from your office? Like, what
Right.
are the chances of that happening? Pretty low. I think there are companies like, who did I write about the other day? I think the founder of like Dropbox, and there's another one that's the company, maybe Slack, that they're remote first. So they've always hired remote workers first. And
You
what they
mean
do,
Basecamp?
yeah, Basecamp is another one. He's the CEO of Automatic, but I forget which companies they have. But it's remote work kind of companies and stuff like that. But others are remote first too, like Slack and stuff. But I think those companies succeed so well because they build it in from the beginning and they're conscious about it. So instead of trying to figure out how to make that work, if someone wants to work from home, they tell people to work from home and then give them the ability to do that. So they provide a monthly stipend. This company, the CEO of Automatic, he was saying that they provide a stipend for all the at-home equipment you need. So like a good microphone, a good camera, a nice thing, a chair. They
Yeah, that's
provide
great.
money for all of that, and you can either use it for your home office, or he was like, you can just go buy coffee so you don't get kicked out of coffee shops. Like it's $500 a month that you have to whatever you want to do with, and that's the stipend for working from home. And then they save the money from having to pay for the lease of an office space, pay for snacks, pay for coffee, pay for all the things that go into an office. Like everybody has to do that from home. So they just give people money to do that from home. I think that's absolutely
That's
brilliant.
amazing.
Yeah. And there's a lot more companies coming on board like that, but I think any leader right now should be heeding that kind of warning that that's coming, and just figure out how to make that an option for people because they're going to want it soon.
Yeah.
So whereas we're closing up and getting closer to the 30-minute mark, what are you working on now? And then also I just want to touch on your fitness following. You have quite a fitness following on all of your social media.
I do.
And you've been doing fitness for a very long time, like you were saying, with basketball back in high school all the way up through college. How did you build that following? I think a lot of people would be interested to know, just like, how does somebody build such a wide reaching, and on all platforms too, Twitter, like everywhere?
Yeah, so with Instagram, it was weird. Like I went to San Francisco for a semester abroad, doing a lot more technology, learning about technology companies, and I wanted to make more money. Same thing as when I was in, my freshman year of high school or college, and I decided to go work at Equinox, which is, as we both and many people know, is like the
That's like the
designer
premier.
gym.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's like LA Fitness, for people that don't know, at Equinox. I think I don't think they're owned by the same company, but they're like the same tier.
Oh, Lifetime.
Oh, is it Lifetime? That's owned by the same company, yeah? Lifetime?
I think so.
But LA Fitness, does LA Fitness not exist anymore?
LA Fitness exists, but it's on a lower tier.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
For some reason I thought, okay, so Lifetime, what else would you compare it to Equinox?
What else compares to Equinox? I mean, there are a lot of boutique gyms that
so
compare
it's like
in terms of price-wise.
super high end, boutique-ish gym, but the Equinoxes are huge. They're not boutique.
Equinox is the biggest, and most, designer, chain, gym chain that I've ever seen.
So you started working there?
Yeah.
At college?
This was my junior year, so this is probably 2018. So 2018 I started working there, and I started building again a great customer base, and I did really well, and I met an editor for Pop Sugar Fitness there, and her name is Gina Florio, so just shout out to her. She kind of taught me a little bit more about social media. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I started.
Like, what were the tactics that she taught you? Just engagement, just kind of the normal
just
thing.
Consistency, and being very engaging to your audience, which I found helped me so much, and just collaborating with other people.
That's a big one. That's one that I don't know about that much.
That's kind of how I took off, because I started collaborating with people like a good friend of mine, Lindy May. She's very popular, especially in Taiwan, and she was a model at the time, and she was getting into fitness. So we did a couple videos together. I did some videos with some other fitness professionals, had a lot of shout outs, and Gina actually published me on Pop Sugar Fitness, which got shared almost 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And my following literally just kept growing and growing, and I was posting literally every day, sometimes twice a day.
So you were doing a lot of hard work, just so that we're clear. It was not, I got featured on Pop Sugar and I took off. You were like, I'm doing this daily, I'm engaging with my followers, and making connections in the real world that you can then do collaborations with. And
I was just being me. I think a lot of people like to switch up and be different when they're on social media versus who they really are, and I think that's tough because you can't keep that up for much long.
It's just people are very good at understanding who's authentic, and sometimes they don't watch people for authenticity. Like nobody's watching Kim Kardashian because they want to see
No,
how she looks in the morning when she wakes up with no makeup on. Like,
they might.
well, they would if she offered that, but
Right.
they are watching the Kardashian show because they want to see what kind of crazy shenanigans they get into and the paparazzi, and they want to like pretend to live that life for 30 minutes while the show is on or something. But I think the people that we really love, because we all kind of make fun of her, we're all just like, oh my god, my selfie's not perfect, like meh.
Yeah.
And like I think it's kind of a joke, but when we really admire somebody, like, you know, a lot of people love Gary Vee and
Hmm.
other people like that. It's he swears a lot in his episodes. He's consistent. He's
Hmm.
like demanding and angry and yelling and then sweet, and like those authentic moments are the ones that people really really want to see, and that's why they'll keep coming back, because it's just like humans are attracted to human behavior, not
Yeah.
like fake curated behavior.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome, and really good tips on like collaborating and how to build a
Just
fitness following.
honestly, if I'm gonna say anything more about social media, it's just be very consistent. I mean, even for me, like I saw a big drop off even in my engagement and a
Well,
lot just from not being like when I got back to Babson, I got sucked into schoolwork and not really posting as much and not really engaging, and it shows. And you just always have to be consistent.
the on the other end of that, like how do you feel about consistency as far as it relates to when you're not doing the thing that you were doing before? So let's say like you were super into fitness and then you started a business venture and you started getting into, I know you mentioned that you like cryptocurrency and just kind
Yes.
of
Oh,
investing, and you kind of started to post about that and talking about those types of things. Like what did you see in terms of your followers, and were there any new followers that came from like that new stuff you were talking about?
I learned that different pieces of content and media work on different platforms. So like Instagram was not a place where I was going to talk a lot about like the details of technology and like blockchain and all that stuff.
Yeah,
That's left for like Twitter because that's the mind of a person who's
yeah,
on Twitter.
I
Or
totally agree.
or like LinkedIn or like something along those lines. But Instagram is very aesthetic. So that's where all of my fitness content is going to live.
Yeah.
That's where, even if I'm messing around or whatever, like that's going to be on Instagram because that's just more visually appealing than on
It's
Twitter where,
the same way that you wouldn't post those workout videos on LinkedIn, but you would post in would do
debatable.
you do?
I've done that and I've gotten, I think it's because
That's
LinkedIn
very
is so
authentic.
new. Yeah,
That's
it's just new.
Yeah, I tried that. It got a good reach, but I spent a weirdly significant amount of time wondering how that was going to affect, you know, people.
Perception.
Yeah, perception, employers, people that were going to be looking at my LinkedIn, and it was because it was a picture of me working out outside with the dogs. I had yoga pants on and stuff, and usually on my LinkedIn, it's very professional and that type
Mm.
of stuff. So I wouldn't say yes or no to it. I just haven't like really done it. So it's good that you've experimented. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of like who you are and what you do so well, is that you're not afraid to experiment and go outside your comfort zone and check out new areas that are just either it's new social networks or new investing to something that you hadn't done before.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the pieces of your success that's like constant.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to close off, the last question I'm going to ask you, and when I ask everybody that comes on the show, um, what do you think is the hardest part about starting a business venture, but specifically a startup venture?
Hmm. So I think the one, let's go from the easiest part, right? The easiest part is always to come up with the idea, bright shining lights. You're like, oh
Oh,
my
I
God, I'm
love
so
that.
excited. You
Yeah.
start bringing people on left and right. You're like, look, this is the idea I'm having. But then the hard part comes into where you have to do the boring stuff. I think
Mm.
that's the hardest part about starting a business
And
is
by
the fact.
boring stuff, you mean business plan writing, like
Business
that
plan
stuff?
writing, market research,
Yeah.
and again, it's subjective, but for the majority of the population who starts businesses, I'm sure they're just like, I don't want to go through numbers. I don't want to do all of the accounting. I don't want to do any of the projections. Like, those are the things that you have to stay. And consistency, I think, is the theme throughout
Yeah.
entrepreneurship in life. Like, you just have to do it day in, day out,
Mhm.
because that idea can be bright and shining to start, but in order to get to where you want to be, you have to do all of the little things
Yeah.
that you don't want to do. I mean, everyone talks about passion. They're like, you have to be passionate, you have to do this and that. No, you just have to do the work and you'll be passionate about the results. Like,
Yes,
period.
I 100% agree. I always tell like new founders and stuff that it's 90% boring stuff and it's 10% really cool pitch contests and
Yeah.
like fun content creation and stuff, but 90% of the time it's writing and it's researching and it's cold calling and it's a lot of kind of boring and not very interesting stuff. But that's what, if you're willing to do that level of operation, then
Mhm.
you deserve to get the level of success, I feel like.
And I think that's what set me back a lot. But I've started so many different things. Like, you know me, like I'm left
Yeah,
and right trying,
same.
but
Yeah.
it's just like I get to a point where I'm just like, I don't really like doing this, so I'm just gonna stop. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, just keep doing
Yeah.
the stuff that you don't like,
But,
and you will like the result.
but what about if you're not passionate about it and that's why you're stopping? Like, not just
That's
that it
different.
doesn't work, but if you come to a realization, like, if this is like such a chore to me right now, and I think it's because I'm not passionate enough about this business specifically, do you think that's a good time that you can
Yes. I
stop?
think I don't ever do something that you're like, I don't like the subject. So, like,
Yeah.
instead of saying I don't like the process, because the process is going to be boring,
Not gonna change. Yeah.
it's just if I don't like the which that's happened to me plenty of times too, where I'm
Yeah.
like, not really a fan of this anymore. I don't want this to be the core thing that I focus on because I'm just not interested in it.
Right.
So that, just always pivot. Always be cool with pivoting, because
Yeah.
pivoting is never bad.
Changing your mind is not a social stigma. Like, everybody changes their mind. Most people don't talk about it, but I think it's kind of brave for people to say, like, look, I've started a bunch of stuff and I haven't finished half of those projects, but it's cool. Like, was curious and I experimented and I learned something. So
Yeah.
that is awesome. Well, I think we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming on the show. It was
Thanks for
great
having me.
to hear you,
Yeah.
hear your perspectives on everything. And I will make sure to drop your social handles in the link below this, in the description below as links, so everybody can find you and figure out where you're at.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.